Right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the panel discussion on cyber fiqh. My name is Zain al-Hussein, and I'm delighted to be joined today by two eminent personalities. Dr. Amina Inlows is the author of Women and Shiism, Ancient Stories, Modern Ideologies, and a co-translator of Spiritual Mysteries and Ethical Secrets by Faid Kashani. She is also a contributor to the Tafsir al-Mizan translation project. She completed her PhD at the University of Exeter on the subject of Shi'i Hadith. She teaches via distance education for the Islamic College in London, where I was honored to be her student. Along with her academic work, she travels and lectures worldwide, as well as engages in interfaith work. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Amina.
Wa alaikum assalam.
We're also deeply honored today to have with us Syed Mustafa Madarasi. Syed Mustafa studied under senior jurists in the Shia world, under Grand Ayatollah Wahid Khurathani and Grand Ayatollah Tabrizi. Syed Mustafa also has a master's degree in theology, specializing in comparative religions and Abrahamic faiths. Syed Mustafa has lectured globally, serving the cause of the Ahlul Bayt and promoting their pristine message for over 2 decades. He is currently teaching at John the Martyr Academic Seminary. Assalamu alaikum, Syed Mustafa.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Great to see both of you. Given we've got just 20 minutes, I'd love to jump straight into the questions if you don't mind. Dr. Amina, maybe we can start with you. What do you think are some of the jurisprudential issues emerging from the development of cryptocurrencies, NFTs, and other wonderful wizardry of the metaverse?
Well, first of all, these are very rapidly evolving and changing issues. I think if we'd been having this discussion maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we would have been using Bitcoin as a synonym for cryptocurrency, for example. And now we have to acknowledge there are different cryptocurrencies with different situations. And of course, the NFT trend has really taken off. The metaverse is certainly expanding in the popular mind and so forth. So it is a rapidly evolving situation. And in the past century, and indeed in the past century, we have seen that many ulama do take a cautious approach to dealing with new technologies, new things, such as my beloved coffee was a new thing at one time. Telephones were new, photographs were new, credit cards, and likewise cryptocurrencies. So we don't have a jurisprudential consensus on how to treat cryptocurrencies in the framework of Islamic law. Many people are aware of some of the underlying issues, but one can divide the considerations that might come up either jurisprudentially or ethically / spiritually into 2 categories: the primary structural issues and some of the secondary situational or socio-political considerations. I think, in my view, the primary considerations will be resolved. That is to say, is cryptocurrency a thing? Is an NFT a thing that you can buy and sell? Does it have a value? Does it have an exchangeable value, etc.? And part of the reason why I think this will be resolved is that it is a technology that I think in and of itself, the technology will persist, even though I think some of these fads and volatility and so forth will die down. And also it's been shown psychologically that the brain treats a virtual object like an object. So if I spend time playing a computer game, of course I don't, and get a coin, in that game, that coin is real to me, even if it has no value. So of course, when we get to things that have a value in the real world, the brain will treat them as things. I do think it's important, however, to bring into the discussion the secondary issues and the pros and cons of cryptocurrencies and other developments in the virtual world in the framework of Islamic ethics. And some of these do guide some of the fatwas as well. There are, in my view, ethical issues for and against them, and they're going to vary a lot situationally from person to person, place to place. In an ideal scenario, the cryptocurrency movement could, for example, result in a more equitable distribution of wealth, a greater access of wealth to the common man or woman. It could perhaps end the trend of certain states attempting to punish other states by cutting off their economic access to the global market. So there is the potential for greater equity, which I believe is an Islamic value. At the same time, there is a digital divide in the world. Not everyone has access to these things. There's more access than there would have been in the past. But for example, if you look at what happened in El Salvador when they attempted to institutionalize Bitcoin, some people didn't have internet access at all. And there are other considerations as well. To me, one of the main ones is the environmental question. Sometimes when we see the internet, we just see the glitter in front of us, and we forget the internet is like a monster. It eats, with apologies, it excretes, and it does. And if we're not in a situation where we're seeing the eating and the waste products of the internet, then we may not necessarily be appreciating the impact. Same thing for anything else like YouTube or Amazon. So this should be handled. There are people who are handling it. There are people who are not handling it. So like I said, it's situational, but there is rising awareness in this day and age of the Islamic ethics pertaining to the environment. So these are some of the considerations that can go behind considering where to situate these things in an Islamic jurisprudential and ethical framework. Of course, there are many more.
Thank you, Dr. Amina. That's excellent. Actually, it's a great segue into my next question, said Mustafa. Usually the big discussion amongst the Shia lay people, for want of a better word, is that we don't understand how jurists derive rulings from texts that are more than 1,000 years old. So when it comes to what Dr. Amina was saying about cyberspace, can you possibly give us an example of how a jurist might practically derive a ruling today?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه أجمعين محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. First of all, allow me to seize this opportunity to thank the organizers of this conference. And I ask the Almighty to grant all the brothers and sisters involved infinite success. And secondly, allow me to, because the conference is called the Imam Ali Conference, to draw the connection between Imam Ali and our discussion. Imam Ali is a central figure in our religion. And his ideals and his principles and his character and what he represents is the our faith. And our fiqh is Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, who has narrated more than 35,000 narration. He has enriched the Shia heritage. He says, he always makes a reference to Kitabu Ali or Mushafu Ali. The Imam was once asked about Mushafu Ali. He said, Mushafu Ali is a transcript. Imam Ali used to write down what the Prophet used to give him. And then he said that this is a very huge encyclopedia. And then the Imam said that all the halal and haram is incorporated in this book. So all our fiqh is in essence derived from Imam Ali alayhi salam. So there is a strong connection between our fiqh and everything that we discuss in fiqh and Imam Ali alayhi salam. As for our discussion, no doubt we are witnessing the rise of a new civilization. It's unlike anything that the world has ever seen before. And the world is moving at a rapid pace, and people's life is just changing accordingly. And people are spending more time in cyberspace than in the real world. And this new environment has different characteristics than the physical world. It's pretty unique. And if we fail to keep pace of the macro evolution that is taking place, we will fall behind and our influence will diminish. And consequently, our culture, our moral system, our identity will be obsolete. And the reality on the ground is changing dramatically. And we strongly believe that the Prophet left us with a robust system to guarantee our survival in life's shifting patterns. And I think one of our points of strength is that our religion doesn't change in accordance with what people desire. And Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam and their teachings and their edicts and their instructions, they're timeless because they emanate from the Quran. Therefore, we can't put an expiry date on their teachings. What the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam have done is lay the foundations. They said that we give you the guidelines. Yes, the world is changing, but our fiqh is equipped with the right tools to handle these changes. It has been designed to adapt to any environment. Why? Because again, their words is intertwined with the Quran, and the Quran is like the sun and the moon, as the hadith says, يَجْرِي مَجْرَى الشَّمْسِ وَالْقَمَرِ. They never become obsolete, they always shine on a new day. And our fiqh stems from our ideals and principles, and these principles can never become outdated no matter what. And in fact, our need for these ideals and principles is only growing. So from a fiqhi perspective, of course, we are dealing with an array of issues in cyberspace. Primarily e-commerce, social media, and all of its implications, cyber crimes, and everything encapsulated by Web3, which includes the metaverse. So essentially, what applies legally in the physical world applies in cyberspace. But it's not as simple as one might think. It's tricky because we're dealing with a new phenomenon here. And the subjects are shape-shifting. For example, back in the day, gold and silver was the predominant currency. And in contemporary history, fiat money backed by gold became the predominant currency. And then fiat money not backed by gold became the currency, earning an intrinsic value. And now we're dealing with cryptocurrency. What might be frowned upon in the real life might be overlooked in the metaverse. For example, ownerships. In the real world, you own something tangible, as opposed to the digital world. We're dealing with non-fungible commodities. So it's a bit tricky here. And this is why fiqh is dealing with a new phenomenon. So in fiqh, even though we believe that everything is, we always say this, that everything is considered halal unless proven otherwise, in some areas, jurists are being very cautious, as Dr. Amina said. Why? Because of the severity of the consequences. And in general, everything needs to be, thoroughly investigated. And obviously, we can't discuss all the topics here related to the internet, which is why we want to look at what perhaps has the most wide-ranging impact, because you asked me to cite an example, and it's a hot topic at this stage, fintech. So in the financial sector, we need to draw the parameters by identifying what we're dealing with. Jurists definitely, seek advice from experts and professionals, because understanding the subject is key to the process of extracting the ruling. Let me just give you one small example.
Sorry, if you don't mind me interrupting, just so you know, we've got 6 minutes left. Just go ahead.
Oh, for the entire program.
That's right. Time flies when you're having fun.
Okay, so let me skip this example. But see, in general, for example, usury is forbidden, right? But how and which transaction in fintech involves a usury? Sometimes the titles are altered. For example, usury is called holding costs, or holding costs will include usury. Or for example, in fiqh we have a concept called gharar, or obscurity. Obscurity in any transaction renders the transaction unlawful. Or for example, exchanging goods that are haram. For example, investing in cannabis stocks. There's no doubt that this is, problematic because the value of a stock is heavily influenced by the proceeds. Dividends are even clear. So, for example, if I'm investing in Amazon and they sell haram products like alcohol or other stuff, but if these are some of the things that we're dealing with, if, for example, this is not the main product sold by Amazon, and the proceeds that come is minimal, then the jurists say that it's negligible. So it's okay to invest in, for example, Amazon. But if the company is LVMH, for example, where alcohol makes up a huge chunk of their revenue, no, it becomes problematic. Now, when it comes to CFDs, contract for difference, or option tradings, uh, because it's a parallel transaction, you're not exchanging anything haram. You're not dealing with actual stocks of the company. Uh, so in here, it's different. But the question is it recognized by fiqh when you're not exchanging anything? And it's parallel to what's happening in the market because it's intangible. Also, for example, leverage trading, margin trading. We know, for example, interest is part of it. Also, it's high risk, and these things directly impact the jurisprudential outcome of the ruling. These transactions are not. We know that these transactions are not new, but with fintech, they've become much more accessible. And when we, for example, take a look at the rulings of Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani when it comes to these things, we find that he's very strict when it comes to stock trading. He says that don't embark on anything that you have no knowledge of. There are so many conditions. I think he stipulates 7 conditions before it becomes halal. And the verse in the Quran is very clear, وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ. Unless you understand what you're embarking on, you're not allowed to deal with these things. Yeah, so
about 3 minutes left.
Yeah, sorry.
That's right. Please go ahead. Maybe you can wrap up just this comment, and then I can put a last question to Dr. Amina.
Yeah. So in the real world, we might be dealing with these things, but because it has become much more accessible, people are asking so many questions. We are dealing with new things, with new challenges that we need to tackle. So the real challenge for a jurist is to apply the principles of fiqh on these new challenges. And we've seen scholars that live in Najaf that have, limited access to the outside world. They've written books in economy. For example, Sheikh al-Fayyad. Sheikh al-Fayyad is a jurist, and he deals with the traditions and the narrations and solely with fiqh, right? But he's written a book in economy because he, seeks the advice of intellectuals and experts in this field. And one of the things that I wanted to say is people who have delved into these fields, we want these people to come and learn about fiqh more so that they can use their expertise in these fields to understand what religion is talking about. We have fuqaha that have tried to understand the economy, fintech, but we need people from fintech experts in this field to also understand what religion is, to try to reconcile between the two.
Thank you, Syed. Now, Dr. Amina, post your time. I'm so sorry, but I'll give you the last comment, a minute or two, if you don't mind, and I'll let you wrap up as well.
And I apologize to you, Doctor.
Not at all, Syed. Go ahead, Dr. Amina.
Sure. What is the question?
I just give you the last 2 minutes to wrap up. I mean, perhaps we could talk about the spiritual dimensions, because you've talked about the jurisprudential dimensions, but we can't really detach the two, can we? So how do you see cyberspace influence on that? Go ahead.
One overarching question that this brings up is what is real and what is reality? If we understand that Allah is the ultimate reality and the material world is a lower level of reality, then where does this fit in? Certainly, Islamic thought admits to immaterial realities, angels and so forth, or the barzakh, which we consider to be extremely real. Many Islamic philosophers would also consider to be the reality of the mental world or social consensus to be a form of reality, like a dollar bill. It has no intrinsic value, but it has an agreed reality and profound effect on the world. So one of the questions here is the metaverse, our NFTs, are they real in the same way? I'm going to let people think about that, but I'd like to share some words from Sayyid Musa Sadr, which I think are relevant here. He says that there is no doubt that labor, like nature, creates value. However, value does not lie within these two factors, but outside them. Value expresses the light of our desire and our hope that is placed on things. Value glitters, grows as long as the lights are shining on it, and then returns to the shadows. So this is the question, the answer to which will be uncovered through time. We don't have an answer now. Is this an entrenched reality and aspect of our material world, or is it something that will end up being a bit delusional? And these are two opposites. The Quran speaks of the false realities as being associated with shaitan and a tool of shaitan, and anything associated with that, whereas the other immaterial realities would be associated with Allah. So where are we? Where are we going? We will find out.
Thank you very much. All that remains to be said is thank you again, Dr. Amina Ainloos. Thank you, Dr. Sayyid Mustafa Madarasi. I'm really sorry we've run out of time. Thank you again to the organizers of this fantastic conference and the audience. Be well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.